All right, I do believe that we are live. Thank you guys so much for stopping by again to visit yours truly, Miss Anita. And I have a very special guest here with me today, Mrs. Kim McKinney. She's a very dear friend, and she's also a registered nurse. And today we're going to discuss different ways of how each of us can support others or each other in our communities. So I'm going to let her discuss some of the organizations, the nonprofit organizations that she's involved in. And she's got a very long list. So just bear with us. And then she's very knowledgeable of a lot of things. So I'm going to let you take it away, Kim. Kim McKinney.
Thank you, Anita. And thanks for the opportunity to be able to share with your audience different ways that we're able to help support each other in community. And I think that's one of the things that I know we have a longstanding friendship, and we were able to do that simply by starting out walking what we called a walkie-talkie. So we'd go out, walk, so we were getting exercise in, and then still able to just kind of listen to how our week was going, what anything that challenges we were struggling with, and so forth. So I think at the time that we reconnected was probably maybe 10 years ago when you were going with me to various meetings and a lot of the different organizations that I'm involved in today. So as a nurse, my view of community is broader. So it's the health of the community in general. So I sit on the Mental Health and Addiction Recovery Services Board here in our county. I'm a part of Good Life Networks, which is an organization that helps support individuals who live with disability in the community. And we look at things like how do we help develop and support those individuals in developing networks. And we all do better with networks. We all do. Yeah. So that's very important, whether we are part of someone else's network, those that we bring into our own network. So that's one way that's very important, I think, is just developing a strong network around you.
Yeah, networking is always good. I agree.
Absolutely. Having a network around you and sort of go-to folks in many different areas that kind of help support us in our decision making, and just feeling like that as we encounter life's challenges, and we all will, those go-to people that we have that help support us in those areas. So in addition to that, part of what I looked at and why I became involved in so many different agencies in our community is that I think when families, individuals, and children have that strong support network, so all those services, and we have a lot in our county, but when you can connect directly to those for your situation and what you need, then I think you can be empowered to have a good life. Oh, yeah. So I mentioned the Mental Health Board. Every county, the 88 counties here in Ohio have mental health boards. So there you can see each board and the services that they support. So it's a good place to start to take a look at what are those mental health support agencies.
And then let me ask you this, Kim, too, especially at this time, since we're approaching the holidays, and this is a time where some people, like I shared, well, you already know I lost my mom and my dad. So it's kind of rough times, and there's other people who have lost loved ones, so it's a struggle. So what are some of I know that you're on the board, or you sit on the board, but what are some of if you can share with us, I don't know if you're able to, but some of the directions that people could go if they needed perhaps some help?
Sure. In terms of looking at grief support, which you just mentioned, there's actually an agency here in our county called Companions on a Journey. They actually meet monthly. And so there are folks that are in various different stages, either working through or with their grief. And so they meet monthly. there's an indefinite time frame there. So they get together every month, and there's, you're continuously working through grief. So this helps provide services and support on an ongoing basis. Of course,
Right.
there's NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness here in our county, and also nationally. So that's a good place also to look for support. But if
That's
you
good.
visit the mental health board and their site, you'll see that there are a listing of provider agencies that you can connect with and find support
And
services there.
yeah, and that could be like anywhere from grief to could it be like for, I think you're part of the suicide prevention program as well. Could it be anywhere like from maybe, I mean, it could be a wide range of things, couldn't it be?
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Because we need support in many different areas. So, but it's a good place to start, and a provider agency can then help you figure out what best supports you and what your needs are at the time. And I think the main thing that we really have to work with and continually work towards is that it's okay to not be okay, that we need to reach out when we need help and support. And I think that sometimes for different individuals, that can be very hard just to reach out and say we need help in a particular, with support. So I think that's probably the first thing to really make that first step towards doing
Right.
that. So, and I think once that process is started, just making that connection, it's so important.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you mentioned is the Suicide Prevention Coalition. So there are many initiatives that are going on here in our particular county, and very different for other counties as well. But the coalition, which is a group of community members, providers, parents, those that work in various fields. So the
Right.
coalition is looking at more of a holistic approach to what can be done in our community. So that looks like that particular community. It could be different in different communities depending upon the need.
Can
So
people volunteer though? I mean, is there areas where maybe other folks who are whole or doing well can volunteer if they wanted to?
sure, the coalition is a great way to become involved in our community and look at how can we best provide support so that we are able to prevent suicide. So prevention is big, and looking at our particular mental health board, you'll see various providers all providing different things. So, but that's a good place to get involved as a volunteer, to have a direct impact on decision making, voicing what concerns you might have, or situations that that we need to pay attention to as a coalition. So that's a community response, and it's a great way to jump in.
Oh, that's good. I
Yeah.
mean, it's nice though that we've got so many different types of organizations that we can either volunteer or help in or be a part where it does support our communities or help each other.
Right.
Because one thing is for sure, we do need one another. Uh, that old saying, "No man is an island," and
Right.
though we may want to be, but you do, from time to time, you do need to reach out to get that support and help that we need. Because, I think you had stated earlier, at some point in time, we all might, may need help or support in some capacity or another.
Absolutely. We all do in various different ways. We have, and we also have the opportunity to support each other. And I think we maybe as a society or as a community, we have been. I think you mentioned earlier. You said no man is an island, right?
Yeah.
But I think we've gotten away from connecting with others, either in our neighborhood. Do we
Yes.
know our next door neighbors? I mean, we kind of drive in our
Guilty.
driveway, shut the garage door or close the door. And,
Mhm.
we're not
Right.
reaching out as we had that built-in support probably prior
Right.
to in communities. So that
You know,
certainly
times
is a
have
way.
changed though so much though, Kim, because back in the day, I hate to keep saying back in the day, that really kind of dates me, but I feel back in the day, it seemed like we had more of that camaraderie with one another. We knew our neighbors. We'd help one another back in the day where you could say, can I borrow a cup of sugar or flour or something like that? But you know what? We everything is so technology where so many different devices and we really isolate ourselves. And so I think we even isolate ourselves even emotionally and detach ourselves. And so we're not really, like you said earlier, we're not connected. We're
Right.
just not connected as
So,
humans.
I've been interested in that piece, Anita, always. And how do we best connect with each other? Because I think when we do that, we find the support and solutions we need just to face life's challenges. So,
Yeah.
one of the things that most recently there was it was called Christian's Corn Stand Jam. And they had, this is where a young man who actually had lost his life to suicide, but
Oh,
his family, in order to raise awareness and connect others, had a music festival slash network of providers all at an event in Hamilton. And different bands came out and played. Different organizations and agencies were there to provide information on the different services that they provide. So
yeah.
as we raise awareness and connect to others, we sort of begin to provide and strengthen networks.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good. And then going back to Good Life Network too, because I know you're the president of that organization, right?
Correct. It's
I know I've gone to some of the functions there in the past because I have a niece, as you know, that's special needs. And I think that that's a very good organization for people where we can all kind of collaborate and work together and um, keep people
right.
connected. It has different types of disabilities, I guess.
Right. So Good Life is actually a collection of, or an association of families. It's a family-driven organization that really
Okay.
takes a look at how can we strengthen and develop networks so that our communities are actually strengthened by the contributions of all of our citizens. So networks, again, as we talked about, help strengthen our resolve for life's challenges, safeguard each other. And so Good Life really takes a look at what do we need to do to strengthen those ties with neighbors? How do we need to look
Right.
at the gifts and talents that we all have to be able to provide to community? So that's a lot of the work that Good Life looks at, finding those areas to develop those connections. And essentially,
Okay.
those are connections we all need.
Oh, yeah. That is very true.
And
Very
those that
true.
live with disability in the community, that sometimes can be making those connections can be harder, but it's something that we all need.
Yeah. And you've been doing that for a few years now.
I think Good Life, prior to coming into the association, Good Life, I think, is now going on 11 years
Oh, wow.
together, parents, 11 or 12 years at this point. Yeah. And
I did not been that long.
right.
I know
So
it's been a few years, but I didn't know it had been that long, Kim.
it
I
has.
want to. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you this too, because I know I had shared in my previous videos, like what inspires each individual. And last week I had Etta Caver on. She works in the field of domestic violence for women and also men who deal with anger management. I want to ask you the same question because you're on the board or sit on the board with a lot of organizations, and I want to know what got you to that place. I mean, you started off as a registered nurse, and we
Mm-hmm.
do know that nurses are here for us as patients to help us, of course. But what got you, led you to where you're at today?
Oh gosh. Where to start on that, Anita? One of the things, I talked a little bit about health in general when we started our conversation. And so to me, health is broad, and health looks at how are we connected, and how are we connected to those things that empower us as a community, as an individual, as a family member, in our employment. So I see connections in many areas. And so what actually started me on this particular journey is what happens when we connect in a way that is pertinent and effective to each of us individually, to the supports that we have. And we have a lot of supports out there, but how do we best connect so that we can live a good life? And how do we make those connections and form those bonds? So that's really what started me out kind of on this journey. Started out talking to different folks who provide services in the community, ordinary citizens. What does it take, do you think, to connect to a good life? And then look at how those connections can form together to provide a
Right.
holistic viewpoint.
Right. And I think to me, another thing is, and that's really good, but I think sometimes people are afraid to make the connections, maybe out of either shame or maybe for fear. Nobody wants to say that they're suffering with some kind of problem or issue. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because
And
someone, oh, Josh. I have Mr. Josh on the line. Let me say hello to him. Thank you. All right, I'm not the best speller either. But anyway, yeah, we got someone that stopped by to visit us. So thank you, Mr.
great.
Josh,
Very
for coming over.
good.
Yeah, this is, I don't,
Very
you just
good.
stopped, you just came on board. This is Mrs. Kim McKinney. She is a registered nurse, but she also sits on the board of a lot of nonprofit organizations. And we're talking about different ways how we as individuals can help and support within our own communities. So yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And one of the things I
Oh,
think
and
is
Mr. Brent is on here too.
okay,
Hi, Mr.
great.
Brent.
Good, good.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I'm sorry. I know I was sharing with you basically like sometimes we are afraid, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking one of the reasons of getting these organizations too is to maybe how can we uh, soft soak or maybe hold someone's hands to lead them in that path of getting some form of support.
Absolutely. I think one of the things we talked a little bit about is just the stigma around asking for help. And when we look at it and examine how we connect to
Good.
support services,
Mhm.
um, you know, there is something that keeps us from doing that. And I think what has sort of shifted that thought process is COVID. COVID has laid
Okay.
bare that we all, in different ways, need
Yeah.
to connect and need support.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped in general for folks to realize, you know what, we need to be able to reach out to each other. We need to know our neighbors. We need to know how we can
Yeah.
best support each other to meet life's challenges. And frankly, life is better, I think, if you are able to share those challenges that you're having. And most often, I think what we find, and one thing that I know I have found, is that while I might be strong in one area, that may be more of a challenge for someone else in another area. So, but yet if we are able to get together and share what our gifts and talents are, that makes it so much easier. So that's kind of getting back to talking about developing a strong network. And I think you and I found that out just being able to get out and walk and talk to each other about, well, I've tried this. Well, have you, I've been able to do this. That just relieves, a lot of that struggle. And you may find an exchange of ideas that's something you hadn't thought of before, just being able to share it with another person.
Well, let me ask you this, Kim, too. What about, forming? I know when I was trying to do the women's group years ago, but I was thinking like to form groups where you can get people in a circle. They may not want to go directly to a formal organization, maybe starting off, but get them in a smaller circle where they might be willing or willing to open up, and then maybe, people that are situated strategically in these groups could help lead them into the pathway going in the right direction. I'm wondering if some of the organizations that you're involved in, if they have like the smaller groups like that.
I think as folks are reaching out to different agencies provide, various different things. But I think one of the things is just simply taking that first step and, reaching out to another person. And so while I think
know someone, maybe perhaps it could be if we know of someone that we can like, hey, have you tried getting in contact with, this, I don't know. Sometimes it's easier to say, like, I can give you a telephone number. At least this is my feelings as to somebody. I know we don't all have that kind of time to, hold a person's hand. But I think with some people, depending on how severity the situation is, if somebody that might be suffering depression or suicidal thoughts, I think I may want to do a little bit more perhaps and just say, here's a telephone number, give them a call.
Absolutely. Right. And I think one of the initiatives too, I know in our county that, different agencies are working on is what they call, no wrong door. And the no wrong door initiative is being able to agencies to share that they may not have a particular service, but they're willing to reach out to another agency and kind of do that warm handoff. And so that's kind of, I think, what you're talking about. But I think also in smaller groups, we have to be able to develop a sense of trust and feel comfortable. And so I think a lot of agencies are aware of that and are, those efforts are in place to make sure people feel comfortable. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, again, I think it starts by knowing our neighbors too. I think just having supportive neighborhoods, folks that are willing to reach out. One of the things that we talked about earlier is an agency, Envision Partnerships, and part of what they do and part of what comes out of the that particular agency and is connected to the Suicide Prevention Coalition is a training. It's a 90-minute training that's offered to the community that will help you link an individual to services. It's called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer. So it's asking the question, what feelings are you having now? Persuading that individual to connect to resources and then referring them. So that training is available. And I think it's great. It's wonderful for being able to provide what is kind of like a mental health first aid. So it's just like CPR, you come upon a situation, you're not going to necessarily be the physician that's going to provide the service. You may not be that person, but you provide that CPR to get that person to help and support.
Right.
So
good.
So we have that available here in our community. So that's another support that you.
And I'm wondering, because everybody is not from Ohio, and I'm wondering, do they have, and you may not know, I don't know, but I mean, I know some of the bigger organizations as far as mental health, obviously that goes across the board, and
Sure.
suicidal hotlines are out there. But I'm
Right.
wondering what you just shared with us, I wonder if some of the other states offer that type of prevention as well, like
Yes,
making it more
absolutely.
personalized.
So I would always say that if you look for your crisis intervention line, we happen to have that here in our county, but also looking at what is the National Suicide Hotline number, who can then get them connected to direct services. So looking in your particular county, starting with the mental health board in your county to see where those services are. And I think that you had mentioned earlier that you would be able to provide some of those connections for your viewers in an
what I could possibly do is maybe add some of the telephone numbers that with anyone who may, because we're going into that's what I was saying up front. We're going to go into the holidays. And for some people, that's a difficult time. For me, it's going to be a challenge for me because my mom is not here. I lost my dad in 2018. Just even putting up decorations is a challenge. And I used to love doing that. So it's going to be a push for me. But I know that there has to be other people who have lost loved ones or, their significant others or what have you that may need some support during this time. So.
Sure. And I think that we mentioned NAMI getting connected, and you pretty much, can look at that and get connected in our community. It's also nationally. You can we have services out there. It's just connecting to it. And I think one of the important things you mentioned was the fear connected with that initial first step, which is so important. And
it's hard. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like sometimes you kind of need someone to really get up close and personal with you, because usually when you're in a situation like that, you kind of tend to want to isolate yourself. And you were saying earlier, which to me I think is really good, because we're not like we used to be years ago, where you knew your neighbors. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I really don't know. I know them. I'll speak to them, but I don't really know them. So that I think is lacking in the times. And I think the pandemic really, like you said, it messed us up. I mean, because now we're all intimidated, don't really want to talk to you. I don't get too close, so which is understandable because we had something really serious going on and still out there. We still don't have a complete handle on it. But just getting back to, I guess, whatever is normal.
I think one thing too, Anita, that you mentioned, and I guess the primary or underlying foundation to all of what we're speaking about is connection. And it's making that connection. And we've found ways to do that. And I think you mentioned isolation. Isolation alone, when we're talking about health, has a detrimental effect on our health in so many ways. So connecting with others we know is tremendously important. Some of the stats they have on isolation is can be so devastating. It's has been cited that it's like smoking. It's comparable. Isolation is comparable to smoking. I think it's has the same devastating effects, as smoking. And I don't think we place enough importance on our connection to others. So, and I think part of the pandemic has brought forth how important that is to strengthen those ties. Whether it's reaching out to your pastor, reaching out to those in your congregation, if faith is a support, if it's connecting with, your friends, finding a way to do that. And all those are important.
Right. Let me ask, I haven't looked on here in the last couple of minutes, but let me see if there's anyone, if anybody has a question that you want to ask, Ms. Kim. I'm going to glance on here and see if there's anything, because I'm looking at over here, but my computer's over here, so you guys bear with me.
No problem.
Okay. Miss Ursula says she has is it NAMI or Naomi in her state in South Carolina?
Right, NAMI. Mm-hmm.
NAMI. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. And I think you mentioned smaller support groups, and so NAMI would be a great organization to reach out to. And
now, what exactly is it? Because I'm not really all that totally familiar with it, I'll be honest with you.
Sure. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and is what the phrase actually stands for. But NAMI provides support to families and individuals in the community who are living with mental illness in the community. So part of NAMI, or part of their responsibility, I guess, and support is providing those small groups that you mentioned. And it's a way to be able to connect with others. It's a way to be able to help support your mental wellness. So NAMI is a great organization that can help support families and individuals. So that's a great place to start. You mentioned where to start, where to connect, and so that's a great organization.
That's a hard thing too. When you're in the midst of your pain, you're not always sure, like, well, where do I start? Well,
right.
Google it. I guess you could Google it, because that's what we do everything now. You go
we connect in that way, but NAMI's a great way to connect.
Yeah, that's good. But and I thank you so very much, Kim, for taking the time to come on board with me today, to be interviewed, if you will, and to share some of your experience in the organization that you're involved with. She's also, guys, involved with way more than the organization that we just mentioned. I know you're also on the board for United Way, the mental health group or whatever, and then also the suicide prevention and New Life Network, and probably a whole bunch of others that I can't remember.
Yeah, pretty much wherever community is happening, that's where you'll find me. So there are several organizations, you're right, nonprofits that I'm involved with, but it's really about connecting. And I think we all experience life in various different ways. And if we have a network and we have supports there, we all can, we're able to do much better with those networks.
And that's one of the things, I don't know if Mr. Brent is still on here, but on his channel, Roadrunner 89, that's one of the things he's been talking about a lot, is network, which I do strongly believe in networking, because I think it's fun. That is how you make those connections. Excuse me. That is how you make those connections, is networking. So, and he was the one that really motivated me to, he was one of my first guests on the live chat. So, and since then you're my third person. Well, no, my third person for live chat. But he pushes networking too as well, in a different way, because he has a different platform, but still, networking to me is networking. It is about making those connections. That's what it's all about.
strong ties. And I think just as we are talking today, reaching out now, here we are able to connect in this way. So while it might not be seeing each other face to face per se, physically face to face, it's still a way to be able to reach out and connect. And I think we
That's
found
true.
it's so important that during the pandemic, look at all the groups that came into existence or found a way to connect with each other through, whether it was through, I'm thinking of some of my groups who found a way to connect and have their either conventions, workshops,
Yeah.
their our holiday celebrations.
Yeah,
We
workshops. I would
found
like
that
to
way
have
to
some
connect.
workshops. I don't know. I sometimes every now and then I think about when I used to do the women's group just to have like workshop because it's really about helping one another, and that
Mm-hmm.
was what I was trying to do then. But I guess now just being on YouTube, I really would like to work in the area, still trying, like you say, making those connections and helping one another because we all have different areas of struggles, and maybe you may not have any struggles today. But one thing I can say in my theory, keep living. If you
Oh,
live
keep
long
living.
enough, at
Right.
some point in time, you're going to
Right.
encounter something, whether it's a loss
Sure.
of a loved one. I think for me, and I was talking to my sister earlier today, I was thinking like in a matter of 3 to 4 years, we've lost both of our parents, my brother, my youngest brother, and a lot of aunts and uncles. And
That's a
it's
lot.
funny, you guys, it is a lot. And it's funny because when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was just living life because we may have suffered some loss. My grandmother passed away. That was probably what, 40 years ago. I don't know if I don't know exactly when she, but I'm just saying, I don't remember experiencing all these losses like, so
Right.
fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then as you get older, period, point blank, then you start thinking about a different way of, life and as a whole, and you just look at a lot of things. So I just know that I've worked in mental health before myself. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
worked in medical records, but still we dealt with people who were admitted into the hospital. I dealt with
Mm-hmm.
that. But I do know that this is going to be a rough time of the year for a lot of folks.
Sure.
Um, Thanksgiving and I mean the holidays is just it's rough. So it's
Mm-hmm.
nice for all of us to be around your family and friends if you're able to, or like we're doing, like stay connected in some kind of way. If you got to do Zoom or
Absolutely.
go on Duo or whatever, but I know it's not the best, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, I think just maintaining that connection for sure. You're right. It may not be the best that we would like to have, but at least keeping those lines connected. And, you know, I think we have found how important it is and that how isolation can really be such a detriment to your health. Um, and as we look at it, we're now finding that we didn't realize maybe prior to, I mean, we knew it was of importance, but we now statistically and actually looking at isolation scientifically, that we need that connection. We are, are genetically wired for connection. So when you look
Yeah,
at
and
health
it's in
problems, very
scientific
important.
studies. I mean, I keep going back to the scientific studies of babies. I think they did a test for the babies,
Right.
same two infants. Both of them were fed. Both of them, their diapers was changed or what have you. But one was coddled and held, and where one there was no physical touch at all. And they
Absolutely.
do
And they did
say
not
there's,
thrive.
yeah, yeah, there's Mrs. Our hat has had studies on that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, having that connection is very extremely important to me and
I
to a
think
lot of us.
the Search Institute has done several studies around connection and what children need in their lives to be successful. And having that caring adult, a connected, caring adult, and a whole host of other things that they list as well. But having that connection is certainly important. And so
So
for So for me, I guess I'm looking at and always looking at how can we best connect. But I think we are our own best resource
Okay.
as a community. So, and that's kind of how we started out talking about that, and kind of how we
Yeah.
reconnected
Yeah.
several years ago.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Well, Kim, I'm not going to keep you because I know that you got a really busy schedule, and but I really do thank you again for your time, and I thank you everybody for jumping on board with me today and visiting yours truly, Miss Anita. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'll check real fast, and then if not, then I'm going to end the live chat. I'll check real fast.
Well, thank you, Anita, for giving me the opportunity just to talk about what my passion is in terms of, connecting to each other, connecting our community, and helping to support each other.
Yes, that's always good. Wonderful. Well, Miss Kim, again, thank you. And thank you guys. And I'm going to say good night and see you guys at the next video or next live chat. And Miss
This
Kim,
is
if
a
it's
great way
okay
to
with you,
connect. So,
I would love to have you come back again. Okay.
sure.
All
Thank you
right.
so much again, Anita.
You're welcome. All right. Take care. I'm going to close
Okay.
out now, guys. All right. Bye.
Bye.